afternoon.
Yeah, the fast one, right?
Real quick.
Obviously, Jacoby Myers no longer in the picture. Who's that created an opportunity for? And I imagine Jack.
Well, it's got to be multiple guys. Jacoby was such an impact player for us, so I wish him the best. He was a great practice player, and I enjoyed coaching him. He's a heck of a kid, but we're going to have to, you got some other receivers. We're going to have to pick it up, and then you move on. That's, we look at it sometimes as we have to approach it. It's not that it's like a player got hurt, he's out of a game, then what do you do? It's the next guy's up. So, Lockett and Bash and Dante and those guys will have to step up, and we'll go from there.
Chip, there has been significant criticism of the usage of Ashton, and I know you're in the bubble and you're not paying attention, but do you think that criticism is fair, or do you think it's just much ado about nothing?
I think he leads the league in rookie rushing, doesn't he?
Mm-hmm.
And carry, so
Mm-hmm.
I think everything we do game plan-wise is about winning that game, so it's not about how many gets how many touches. Maybe some fantasy people are a little disturbed, but we're not coaching for fantasy people, so we're just trying to win games. So I don't, that's not. I mean, he's our number one back, and when we're running the ball, he's running the football. So, and I think you saw him a little bit in the pass game the other day, and he's starting to evolve in that, and trying to get him more involved in that way. So, he's continuing to grow. He's doing a heck of a job. I'm really excited that we have him.
Trading Jacoby for draft picks, is that an indication?
I have nothing to do with that. So.
Of a rebuilding season?
I have nothing. I'm concerned with Tuesday afternoon as a coordinator. So that those decisions are all made. Those are Pete and Spy, and I got great faith in what those guys are doing. So they just told us this morning, and our plan adjusts offensively for not having Jacoby in the plan. Against Denver, and that's it. So I don't look any farther than that. We're really good at. We'll control what you can control. So as a player, they control what they control. As an assistant coach, you control what you can control, and then the rest of it follows up. But I don't have any aspirations to be a general manager, so I'm not looking at any of that. So.
How would you assess Jack Bash's progress?
Jack's done a nice job. He's got to play multiple positions. Whenever you're not the starting receiver, you have to play multiple positions because typically we go into games with just 5 receivers. So you got to back up the Z, you got to back up the slot, you got to back up the X, and so you got to play multiple roles. So you don't get to put them in just one spot and have them just stay in one spot because it's just the depth of the NFL puts you in that situation. So both him and Dante are coming along. It's the transition for any rookie is a difficult transition. So whether you're an offensive lineman or a running back or a receiver, so those guys are giving us everything. They practice hard. So we'll continue to see how they develop.
In terms of Jack, what kind of similarities do you see between his game and Jacoby's game?
Yeah, I don't compare anybody to anybody, so I don't see any similarities between them. I think everybody's their own individual, so I've never looked at a player and said, this guy reminds me of that guy. It's just, what is that guy's strengths and what are his weaknesses, and how do you improve this? How do you lean into the strengths and improve the weaknesses is what we do in terms of the development of the player.
Could this be a chance where his role gets a little bit more defined?
Tuesday afternoon, yeah. He may get a couple more snaps in practice. So, again, we're not thinking long-term. We just found out probably just when you guys found out. So that's not what we're thinking about. We're thinking about putting in a good afternoon of work here. It's really congested in terms of our days. Your Monday is a Wednesday, your Tuesday is a Thursday, and then in less than 48 hours we're playing a football game. So, it's the week itself is slightly different. So we haven't really talked as a staff about anything. We went right from getting the news in the first staff meeting to individual, right into position meeting. So
it's finally synced up now where Brock and Mike Mayer are both kind of healthy. You used a lot of 12 personnel against the Jaguars. How excited are you to be able to use them to the best of their abilities now, both being healthy?
They're both really good tight ends, but I think your use of personnel really depends on what defenses you're going against and what that elicits from defenses. So sometimes you say, hey, we should be in a lot more 12. Well, if they put a different look on the field, then you probably don't want to be in 12. You want to be in 11. So you're trying to figure out, how do they deploy their defensive guys based upon what you deploy, because they don't have to play what we want them to play. Like, we can't call Vance and say, hey, when we play this, can you do this for us? That doesn't work that way. So, I think each week will change because every opponent's different. So the fact that we have two, we've always felt like we have 2 number 1 tight ends, and Mike and Brock is a good deal. So. But how we use them and how we deploy them each week will really depend on who our opponent is.
Why do you think Dave Joseph defense in Denver has been so effective over the last couple of years?
Vince's done a really nice job. I think he mixes and matches his schemes. I think he plays to his strength. Obviously, it starts up front. That defensive front is the best in football right now. They have the most sacks by 10 or more, I think, right now. I think they have 40 and nobody's even in the 30s. So they can generate pressure. He doesn't have to all up, but he will all out you. So you can't say, they don't have to all out because they've got a really good 4-man rush, but they will all out you. And if you're not ready for it, they're going to get shots out of your quarterback. So I think because they can disrupt the timing from their pass rush standpoint, and they can present multiple coverages on the back end. I think he does a great job of mixing and matching. I think he's one of the top coordinators in this league.
Chip, what do you think this trade means for Trey Tucker? And is it safe to say he's the WR1?
Yeah, I don't look at WR1s or WR2s or WR3s or W2s. We're trying to figure out whoever catches the ball and runs really fast with it in the direction of the end zone is really good for us. So wide receiver one and all that other stuff, I don't think we've ever looked at it like that as a staff. We have certain positions. What does our Z do? What does our X do? What does our slot receiver do? That's how we kind of look at positions, but we don't look at some weeks the inside guys will be featured more because that matchup is better for you, and then some weeks the matchup on the outside is better for you, so those guys are featured more. But a lot of it, obviously, in all of these situations, the defense have a say in the matter. So I think that's part of what the game is. There's a chess match that goes on within the game of how are they going to defend you. You thought going into the game it was going to be one way, and then it is that way. So you kind of continue with the plan that you made all week. But I've been in games where you thought they were going to defend you a certain way, and then they don't defend you like that at all. So you have to pivot because they made a decision to pivot. So that's the game within the game. So.
When you have veterans like Lockett and Gino that have worked so much together, is there things that they can do with and say like, hey, this really works well for us?
Gino's been like that since we've been him, and right now Lockett's just learning our terminology. Tyler's been great. He's played a lot of football, and him and Gino are on the same page. And I think sometimes Gino can interpret. They may have called it one way when they were in Seattle, and we call it this way now here in Vegas. So you can see Gino say something to Lockett, and he'll, oh, okay, I got you. And then this is what we want. So Gino's always done. Gino's very active in part of our game planning. What he likes, what he sees. He's a student of the game. He's in this building 24/7. He watches as much tape as any coach. So we value Gino's input on a lot of things.
You mentioned Tyler. What did he show you guys in that first game action with you?
I thought he did a nice job, for what he was called upon. I don't know what his total snap numbers were, but in terms of what his assignments were, he was spot on with what he did. And he's continuing to learn. He's got quickness. Obviously he's played in big games. Nothing's too big for him. So we'll continue to see what he can do. It still hasn't been a week. But we're getting into game 2 with him. So we'll see where we go from here.
Thanks, Coach.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you, Chip.